True Talk, a podcast from TRULAND Equipment, where community, farming, and John Deere technology collide.
What's new in agriculture? What's happening in your neighborhood? And most importantly, who are the people that make it all happen?
True Talk, cultivating true conversations. Welcome back to the True Talk podcast. After a brief break,
Yeah,
Jackson?
quite a busy season, I would say, right? We just didn't really find the time. We were so busy. It's been such a long, drawn-out spring for us.
We finally made it into June. Finally got some sunshine and warm weather consistently. So very long planting season.
Yeah, so we're still planting in some
Well,
areas.
yeah, hopefully when this podcast comes out, we won't be.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There's going to be some farmers that are going to want to punch me, but I do think there is some rain in the forecast in our area for next week.
About a couple days or a few days out. Yeah, so we're recording early June. This will be released probably in another week. So hopefully by that time we are done with planting. And again, a very long. That'll make it basically a 2-month planting season.
2-month planting season, 2 times replanting.
Yeah,
maybe some guys. Yeah, not
we've
a
had
bit
about
sticky.
everything.
Yeah.
So welcome back. Good to be back.
Yeah,
Good to have some things to talk about after being able to take a deep breath here. So
yes,
today we are talking about what?
I am very excited about this podcast. We have a parts segment, I'll call it. Let's talk parts. We got a parts manager from one of our stores here. We're actually at the Bluffton location again, and we happen to run into our Bluffton parts manager to talk about
Fantastic.
parts. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to our guest here to introduce ourselves.
Yeah, let's play get to know your coworker here a little bit. So welcome. Tell everybody your name.
Thank you. My name is Erikk Schoeff. I worked at a smaller non-Deere dealership for 15 years. And then I came to the company at the time it was TTG 2023. And then a month later it changed to TRULAND. I worked in parts at the Huntington location for almost 2 years. And then when the parts manager job opened up here in Bluffton, I applied for it and was offered the position and took
Fantastic.
it. So I've been over here almost a year.
There you go. It's crazy because you started kind of around maybe a year before me, but around that same time where like you just started like, hey, we're making this huge change to a company. We're merging.
Right.
Know?
What was that like coming in? Like, did you know we were going to merge right when you came on board?
That's funny. So the night before my interview, they had announced the merge on Facebook, and so I was like sweating bullets already about the whole interview
like the
process.
rest of us.
Yeah, and so then I was like, oh man, what's this going to mean for me? You know, so
yeah,
that's funny
for sure.
Worked for a competitive company. Was it an ag?
Yes, it was Rupley Farm Equipment in Columbia City, Indiana.
Yeah. Parts or.
I did a little bit of everything, mostly setup, worked on lawnmowers in the spring, helped with parts, and there we didn't really have set parts people per se. It'd just kind of be like, phone's ringing, somebody needs to answer it. And so whoever could drop whatever they were working on would go and take care of the customer, take care of the phone. So I got a lot of exposure to a little bit of anything and everything from helping farm to, helping customers, putting stuff together, just
nice.
Anything and whatever.
Got to learn probably a whole lot of stuff. That's an old company that's been around for a long time, I know for sure. So very good. So welcome.
Yeah.
The very young looking Erikk Schoeff, we've decided.
That was very funny. Pre-podcast, pre-recording, we were talking about, I said, how old are you, Erikk? And I said, you look like you're 10. He goes, oh, I'm 35.
Well, he's got a beard, so he's probably not.
Hey, I have a beard and I'm 24. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. And Schoeff, I gotta throw that in. Schoeff, sorry. It looks like Schoeff to me. So very unique spelling of the last name. Spell that out. It's Schoeff or
yeah,
is that right?
Schoeff.
Yeah. He says chef, so it's not Chef, but chef. Anyway, I'm assuming that's a German name, perhaps.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic.
Ooh, German, yeah. What about is that the same with the first name, right? Because I also talked to our store lead here at Bluffton, Mr. Chad Lance, and he goes, oh, which Erikk? 2K or regular Erikk?
So we have one with 2Ks.
Yeah. My mom, when she named me, she evidently wanted to be a little bit unique and go with a K and did 2Ks. Because my sister's name also had like a double consonant in it. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So double K Erikk.
Huh.
Yep.
All right.
Interesting.
Welcome. So we're going to talk parts.
Yeah. To be honest, Erikk, you already kind of started off with something that I maybe wanted to go on a bit of a tangent on. I hadn't planned on it, but because I didn't know a whole lot about your background and history besides being at TRULAND and TTG, but you mentioned you weren't necessarily a parts person at the previous company you worked for.
Yeah.
So like, how does that experience of being able to work on the equipment, doing things not just behind the counter or like in a parts warehouse, like help you as a parts manager, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's helped me a lot when I was at the parts counter, and then also now as parts manager dealing with the various companies that we dealt with there. I mean, we dealt with McCormick tractors, and then there's a lot of overlap on some of the stuff we deal with now. Like we were a Kuhn dealership, mostly like the hay and manure equipment, woods mowers, and then like some of the like small engine stuff that we dealt with on the short line stuff that we dealt with there, J&M wagons, Underfirth.
You've seen it all.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
you guys had that freedom evidently to choose some pretty good brands, because we again,
Yeah.
like you said, we carry a lot of those brands too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
And that's something I think we'll hit on a little bit later too. But that also, I think, will segue from there into how does that like parts system compare to our current parts system and infrastructure? Because there's like, I want to emphasize, this is something that I think people take for granted. There's a lot that goes into parts. You know, customers can walk in and talk to a person at the parts counter, and most of the time, I think we do a pretty good job of stocking parts. So if we say, yeah, we've got it, I'll go get it. Bang, it's here. Oh no, we don't have it. You know, we make sure the customer's going to get it either same day or next day or within a reasonable amount of time, right? There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of infrastructure to our parts system that people just take for granted. They just think that parts magically show up.
Right.
You know?
You just basically mentioned the customer experience, the whole customer experience, but what you're saying is behind the scenes, there's a whole lot more than that.
Pull back the magic curtain of the parts counter and show me what people don't see when you walk behind those two double doors. You know, whether it's a parts warehouse, whether it's the computer system, whether it's our internal transfer system. You know, like we'll kind of walk through and talk about all those because I think there's little pieces to talk about. But like, you know, our parts system now, we're making a transition from our current part system to a new part system. And that's something that the dealership as a whole, service and sales as well, has been kind of transitioning away from old systems to new systems. So parts is finally getting that upgrade. What's that system like? What's that transition like? What's that like for you on being able to help the customer at the end of the day? Because that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. It definitely, that is number one priority is, you know, helping the people that are out there farming, getting them the right parts, and, you know, trying to have the parts on hand that are needed. So the new system that they're moving to, at first they were calling it JDPO, but now you get on there and it's called Parts Center. It's supposed to replace JD Point. And JDPO, we've been using it for a little while. They've been transitioning some of the smaller warehouses over to the new system. It's like a new, I went and I toured the factory at Milan, would have been like the fall of 23. And they were talking about that change upcoming then. They described it as like switching it over to SAP. It's like a different business system on their end. And they said that the old system was outdated and there was a lot of glitches in it with JD Point. So they're wanting to move to this modern system. And they started with like some of the smaller warehouses like Mattoon. And so we've been getting some of the parts automatically from Mattoon. So we've been dealing with that website. If there was ever any issues like overages, shortages, went through the Parts Center website for that. But now they're switching everything from JD Point to the big warehouse at Milan. They're switching it over a little bit at a time, the way I understand it, in zones of the warehouse. And so they started it, I think about 2 weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the ordering system now, when we order it from our business system, it goes into Parts Center, and that's where you place your order. And then it will then from Parts Center, if it's not part of the new zones or like part of Mattoon, then it gets kicked back to JD Point, and you got to go into JD Point and check on the order. So it's created a few more steps, but when it's all said and done, I think it's going to be a lot easier to navigate than JD Point was as far as like tracking your packages. And
So you can see the potential in this new system already, just dabbling in it a little bit.
yeah, it's not quite as many steps to get to where you need to go if you're wanting to track where a package is or pull up an invoice. And they haven't really fully turned us loose as far as like doing all the overages and shortages or mislabeled miscellaneous parts returns, stuff like that through the new system. But they said that's going to probably be this fall. So it'll be interesting to learn how to do all that stuff and see how it compares. But I can see where they're going, and it definitely seems like once it gets a little bit further along, I think it'll be a lot smoother.
Yeah. And so you say smoother for us, but I think the reason I asked that is because, as we're a dealership, but we're a business, right? We have the business model. We run on that business model. We got to make money. That's why we have these business systems, right? To help keep us organized. But at the end of the day, what does that mean for the customer? We're making that transition, but the customer doesn't see that transition because we're still maintaining our same status quo of delivering parts, right? Like that hasn't inhibited our ability to get parts to customers.
No, so far here at Bluffton, I haven't really had any issues where it's impacted that the customer would notice as far as getting the parts. Mainly the stuff that I've been seeing is just kind of on the back end, receiving parts or pack lists not showing up in a timely manner. But as far as like actually getting the parts and that kind of stuff, there hasn't been any hiccups that the customer would notice.
Yeah. And again, I'm biased, right? I spent 2 summers being a semi parts manager out on a parts van for a company that does a harvest run support for custom wheat cutters. And the business systems that they used, it was super cool because we were just basically a mobile dealership. And so listening to how our dealer system works versus their business system works was really cool. So I'm asking these questions a little bit selfishly. But I think it's important to call that out because there's a lot of infrastructure, right? That's why people are behind computers now to keep track of everything.
Well, and you think about it, I mean, we're going through some transitions in different parts of our business as well, right? We're working through service center now, right? And almost got that complete. We're working into JDMSO, right, on the sales side, and obviously parts center, and you can see the theme there. But think about the Deere side of this. You're talking about different zones getting added to this parts program. There's a manual side to this from a John Deere standpoint. Very, very manual intensive side on the corporate part to get things converted into this parts center as well.
Right. And the thing that you don't see, which is that the system is all Microsoft based, right? So before we were running like 3 or 4 different base platforms, application systems, and you can imagine how well that plays together. I mean, that's like trying to mix, green technology with red tractors or something. You run into more hiccups, and so it takes extra legwork to make things flow as seamlessly as it should, versus when it's all based in the same system, you set yourself up for success, right? And then you open yourself up to a lot more possibilities that, we will see, but then also the customer could eventually see at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I could see that.
The other thing I wanted to call out, right? So we have the business system that we're using through Deere, right? But we also have our own internal parts transfer, right? And I'm, again, really biased, but I think we do a really good job on parts transfers, right? Customer says, oh, I want this part. Well, we don't have it, but so-and-so store has it. We can get it either by the end of today because you got to us first thing in the morning, or it'll be here first thing tomorrow morning, right? Like, you want to talk a little bit about how our parts...
Just the process.
Yeah, process works.
Schedules, process.
Because you guys have that all internally worked out, but the customer doesn't know that. They don't really see that. They just say, oh, great, my part will be here, right? But they don't know all the intricacies that go into making that part show up.
Yeah, so I mean, when you look up a part, I'll start from there. You find the part, you put it onto a parts sales ticket. It'll tell you whether you have the part in stock or not, or if you don't have it, a pop-up box will show up and it'll prompt you with how you want to order it to fulfill it. And so from there, you can see whether other stores have it, or you can check and see if John Deere has it. But it'll show you everybody's inventory of said part. And then from there, you decide the best way to order it for the customer and say you want to transfer it. Then that's when you would look and see, who's got the part, how many they have, or also you could base it off of like, how quick can I get this part for the customer? Like, he wants it tomorrow morning. Well, the best option might be machine down, or like say from, the Bluffton location, Coldwater Show's having it. Well, the transfer truck meets Bluffton in the mornings and they switch parts out. Well, maybe I want to get it from Coldwater and get it for the customer, and he doesn't have to pay freight that way. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and not every situation is the same. But say you want to transfer the part, well, then the other store would receive, the transfer request, and then they pull the part and ship the part in our business system, and then they put it into a tote and it gets picked up. I thought when I came over here to Bluffton, knowing that this is where the two trucks meet, there's an east truck and a west truck.
Yeah.
And the east truck hits up most of the Ohio stores in Woodburn, and then the west truck, handles most of the Indiana stuff then. So they meet here at Bluffton first thing in the morning, like 7:30 in the morning. And that was one of the things that when I came over here, my first day, I wanted to show up early because I was like, I wonder how many times I'm actually going to just be able to like sit there and watch them.
The parts truck transfer.
Yeah. So my first morning I showed up like at 7 a.m. and nobody got here till like 7:45. So I was like hanging out by myself for a little while, walking around, didn't really know where my office was or, And so I watched them load the transfer truck, and it is pretty interesting. They definitely have a system to it that I had no part in figuring out. But yeah, they swap parts from one truck to another and kind of sort it to where it is supposed to be ending up, and then the trucks leave for the day, and they make their loop and drop parts off, pick parts up, and then like the truck here, it ends here at the end of the afternoon. And then they unload it and they start sorting stuff and staging stuff for the next morning.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you call it makes a loop, right? So it meets up and then it goes to all the stores and then comes back around, right? It's like a bus route.
Sounds like the post office to me.
Or the post office. Yeah. Which, and if you think about it, and again,
dropping off and picking up.
Yeah.
Right?
That might be boring for some people, but if you actually get into the USPS Postal Service and how they handle that, super interesting, all the systems they have. But the one thing, I'm going to sound like a broken record, I want to call out was that you mentioned that there was a lot of different situations and scenarios that a parts person goes through in their head to determine what the best way to get that part to the customer is. But at the end of the day, that customer's still getting the part. They don't really know everything that you just went through in your head or all the systems that you crossed through to get that part there. They're getting the part into the discussion, right?
So the reality is, it sounds like as long as if the customer comes in at a reasonable time of day, he can about get a part the next day from anywhere in our territory, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, if they have it, we could potentially make that happen. I know here lately they've been talking about cutting the transfer route down to 3 days throughout the year and kind of limiting the amount of transfers that are handled on a company wide level. So like cutting it down to 3 days in the off season.
Sure.
And then doing like 4 or 5 days during planting and harvest,
peak seasons.
Yeah. And so,
and that makes sense.
That will also, play an effect of decision making as far as where parts need to be coming from. Hypothetically, if one of the other stores has it and it's first thing in the morning, I could potentially have it either that afternoon or, first thing in the morning for the customer, depending on, where the truck's at, where it's been and stuff. So that's pretty cool that we have all that inventory at disposal. And
right. And another huge added perk for internal employees is the fact that we can ship stuff on those parts transfers as well, right? I send a lot of stuff out of parts transfer, even though it's not a parts transfer, right? Being Integrated Solutions IS, I have a lot of the precision ag equipment in my office. So I get a transfer request and I go, oh, ship it off to so-and-so at Huntington. So I go, okay, box it up, right? So-and-so's name, transfer slip on it, drop it in the box, bam, he's got it, right? Yep. So it's not just parts that gets transferred on that. It's our own internal postal service.
It is, yeah. Internal mail, yeah. Intra company delivery system, if you will, right? Transferring displays, receivers. Even if we have a stack of documents that need to be put in an envelope and shipped to another store, we throw those in the parts transfer as well. It's very, very convenient. That's for sure.
Yeah. So on that parts transfer, I guess it's the other side of that coin is if we don't have to do a transfer because we have it in stock, I like to talk about the fact that we have a really well-stocked set of dealerships, stores, like we have warehouses, right? It's not just a parts room. We have warehouses. I can't remember. Someone threw a figure out at some point and said, yeah, our dealership alone keeps X amount of millions of dollars worth of, stock on hand for parts alone. And we sit on that so that way customers can walk through the door and say, I need that part. Oh, hey, we have it.
Yeah, I want to get into that too, if you don't mind. Give us kind of your 2 cents on our company strategy, because for years it was lean inventories and that kind of thing. So
just in time,
that kind of stuff. What is our philosophy from a part standpoint in that regard?
I don't really know what they base it off of, but I'm pretty sure that there's metrics that Deere uses as far as the demand of certain stuff, and then as parts manager, there is some forms out there in our like company SharePoint thing that we can fill out if we want them to stock us a little bit higher level on some stuff, or say, for instance, we have 15 like seed tube guards in stock, but like you want to stock enough for a 16 row planter. Well, you can tell them to adjust that. Say, hey, I want to set a minimum of like 16 seed tube guards. Like it doesn't make sense to not have enough for
right. Yeah,
a full 16 or 24 row planter, whatever you're doing.
Sure.
So there is, avenues to adjust that, but I know Deere uses some metrics, and there's actually somebody that we utilize from John Deere. It's like called RPM, like that he monitors some of the stuff and probably makes suggestions on that. And I know they generate we do inventory transfers that they generate off of those reports and stuff. So I'm not really involved too much in those numbers and what those actually look like. But I know corporately they are looking at that stuff and decide stocking levels on a lot of stuff. But they do, if I have input on stuff like that, they will, take that into account. And I have, good relationships with the people that handle that. But yeah, corporately they do a great job of, making sure we're stocked with, the right parts. And a lot of it goes into the demand part of it. And then also Deere has been pushing heavily with wanting us to capture PIN numbers on sales tickets. And they're going to use the like analytics of that kind of stuff with the machines that are in certain territories and use that towards stocking as well.
The predictive part of it, right?
Yeah, that I was going to call that out. Yeah, because from the little bit I dabble in the service side, because I go out sometimes and I have work orders open. Granted, a lot of times I'm not putting parts on those. It's usually just my time. But I do know from interfacing with the service side and that they need a serial number, has to have a serial number. And I know our parts teams, like you said, the corporate side is looking at those work orders coming through and being completed. And they say, hey, we had a really high number of work orders that had this part number on it. Is that an instance or is that just a fluke? Whatever. They look into it and they'll create reports and they'll work with like Deere, you said, and either make them aware of it or we'll just have it as an internal company thing where, hey, we're going to keep X amount of these things stocked because we think it's going to be a high volume part, right? So that way when a customer walks in and says, oh, I can't believe you don't have X and X, oh, no, we do. We know that that's an issue, so we keep them on hand.
Oh, yeah. I ran into that this spring with it was like a reman roller for a tractor that we didn't have it. And the customer was a little bit upset that we didn't have it. And so one of the salesmen put me onto it and I dug into it and nobody had it, but we had them on order and they were back ordered from John Deere. So yeah, they are doing a fantastic job behind the scenes of making sure that we are, have our orders placed for some of this stuff that, like you said, could be issues. But I mean, sometimes, unfortunately, there's issues on down the line that we can't control. But so in that instance, I went out of my way to, look up other dealers around that might have it and told the customer maybe to go that route. And then I got with corporate parts and I asked him if he would stock me with the original roller instead of the reman, which was almost twice as much money. But in a pinch, that guy, he might have taken it because it was right on his back doorstep. So
at the end of the day, the farmer just wants to keep going.
Well, I mean, and the reality is I appreciate what you're saying is you sent him to another place to get it because you wanted to keep his needs at the forefront. And that was what you had to do.
Yeah.
Keeping the customer, focus on the customer.
I about guarantee by you telling him to go to that other dealership to get his needs met, he's going to appreciate that more and come back. I mean, He came to us first because that's who he deals with, right? But us telling him, not pulling the wool over his eyes saying, oh, no one else has it. You could have easily done that. And that would have been really unethical almost.
So I got to ask this. Okay. Tell me about what's a day look like for a parts manager in this company? What is a normal routine for you? I think we've kind of asked in previous podcasts what a normal parts guy does, but what does your day look like on a mostly daily basis?
So, first thing when I get here, I will, take a look at the John Deere sends a report every morning. It's called an event report that'll show you if like any of the parts that you ordered either go to back order or if any of your back order parts will have a promised date or go to scheduled. And so a lot of times I'll review that, maybe catch up on if there's some work order stuff or other emails in the morning. And then from some mornings I will help put away the machine down parts. Like right now, we kind of have a staggered staff with our extended hours. So a few people come in at 7 a.m. when we open, and then a couple people stay till 6 p.m. So I tell them like, hey, you don't have to show up till 8 o'clock if you're going to stay until 6, or even you could come in at 9. But for the most part, everybody gets here at 8. But like this morning, I showed up early and sorted the machine down parts for most of it was tech stuff, a few customer stuff. And then we have a warehouse guy that in the morning he will put away parts. And so I'm constantly looking at Excel spreadsheet that we'll look at for invoices of parts that could potentially show some mistakes that have been made as far as receipting the stuff goes. And so I monitor that stuff. And there's all kinds of reports that I'll monitor. I'm very rarely sitting still or in my office all day long, so I can always find something to do. But
so it sounds like you have a little bit of everything to do, but you also do what some of, I don't want to say the regular, but like you do what a parts counter salesperson does, or maybe even a warehouse, person does. You're a jack of all trades being a manager. Sometimes you think about a service manager, his big job is to take phone calls, be in the service office. He doesn't go out and wrench on stuff,
close work orders.
But the parts manager gets to still do basically anything any other parts employee or person would do, right?
Right. Yeah, I will help. Take phone calls, help customers at the counter when possible. The way that we're set up over here, I don't have a spot out there at the counter per se. When I see that it's busy, I will take phone calls, or if I see people standing waiting in line, I'll have them come back and step in my office, and I will go ahead and help them out. Sitting there at my computer. But if we have somebody that's out for some reason, I can log into their computer, and like Saturdays, I'll log into a computer out at the counter when we have limited staffing. And I work my Saturdays out there at the counter and am facing the customers and helping the customers out like a normal parts person. So
working manager.
Well, yeah, there you go. So I got to ask them, what's your favorite part about any of the responsibilities you just mentioned? Like, do you like working the parts counter and seeing the people, or would you rather be back in the warehouse, or do you like looking at those reports and being like, hey, we need to focus on getting this part ordered, or we need to work on the logistics behind these parts? Like, what's your favorite thing to do as a parts manager?
I would say, one of my favorite things about the job is just ultimately helping customers, whatever has to be done. And it might be one of my biggest flaws, but I have a hard time sometimes asking people to help me do stuff or do stuff that I'm fully capable of doing. So maybe I should pass off more work, but I definitely am not afraid to get my hands dirty and, help out any way possible.
I understand that. I know from my short stint as being a parts manager, just because I received in parts and stuff, I kind of consider myself a parts manager, but it's a bit phony. But one of my favorite things to do was audit our inventory, which everyone else on that team with me hated doing. When they'd walk in the morning, I'd say, here's your inventory sheet. Go check all these bins and make sure the parts are there. And they'd look at me and kill me.
Switching gears here, what makes a good candidate for a parts employee? And how do we go about training new parts employees? So kind of a two-part question. But I'm assuming you look for some certain characteristics in someone when you want to hire someone to be a parts guy.
I would say, you want somebody that is pretty good with computers, has good customer, relations, or, you wouldn't want somebody that's, shy or quiet. I mean, you want somebody that is outgoing and knows, how to talk to people.
People skills.
Yeah. Good people skills would be pretty good. Attention to detail would be very helpful. There's a lot of things that if you were a little bit sloppy, it would, get hard to, I wouldn't want to feel like I was, badgering you or, hounding you all the time about
micromanaging you.
Yeah, right. But I mean, good attention to detail is, there's a lot of repetitive stuff that goes into it. And if you're not, precise with it, it could get kind of challenging as a manager to clean up
I've heard
some of
that too.
stuff.
Oh yeah. And like I said, from my limited experience of doing it is, like you said, the repetitiveness. And so you just get in a habit of, and then as soon as you miss one thing and then you come back and look and you go, oh, that one false key I punched in or did it like twice because I received it so many times, creates a huge mess.
Right.
And then you spend hours, days, weeks tracking down, how to make that fix. So,
and it's not only that, but just the inventory side of thing, right? I mean, you have to be almost a little bit OCD, right? To have that organizational inventory type understanding of where things go, where things are, where they need to go.
A place for everything and everything in its place.
Like an accountant almost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely have our fair share of that, of, needing to clean up mistakes that had been made, over the years, like previous to me being over here. And, some of the stuff that I've, been a part of since we got over here is redoing some of the bin locations to make it so it's more precise and not such of a broad, like you go back to a shelf and you have like an 8-foot shelf that is, that you're searching for.
Bins.
That has like the same bin location. So we kind of split some of that stuff up, and I'd like to do a little bit more of that.
So that's actually a good point too, because this building still, like we've done a podcast on it, it's still relatively new, really, if you think about it. So like, how was that? Because when you came in, that transition had kind of already happened, but not every transition is smooth and just stops after the building opens up. You continue to improve it, right? So like, how is that being handed a basically brand new parts system and having to say, okay, hey, keep making it better, or you're finding things that you say, well, that didn't really make any sense, and now you're going back and changing it, right?
Yeah. When I got hired on, I was over here for a day. It was like orientation type of deal, and it was the old building and stuff. So I can still kind of remember that. And once I came over here, it's a lot different. It was all completed and everything. And I've taken into account, some of the suggestions of the other people that were over here. They're like, I don't know why they did this when we rearranged it. And like this last winter, me and a couple other guys went upstairs, and I'm like, well, we want to change these bin locations to make it make more sense. Like, let's rearrange them. So we made the shelves go the opposite direction. We spent like probably a week, maybe close to 2 weeks up there, like rearranging stuff. And it's still not completely done, but yeah, we've done a few things like that and some other stuff. And, I've had some really good help over here, and I've taken their ideas and was like, well, you don't like that? It doesn't make sense. Let's change it, So
that's awesome to hear. I love hearing that.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And systems, man. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I did that too. Well, whatever I do, I always try and make some sort of system about it, because I'm all about efficiency. Whether I'm as efficient or not, I like to try and make efficient systems. So you're talking my name or my game when you're talking about just totally rearrange, like the heck with it. It may take 2 weeks, may take 3 weeks, but we're going to do it, because at the end of the day, it'll save, whatever kind of time it is. And the other thing is it reduces error, right? So it makes you less likely to create a mistake, which then like almost multiplies your efficiency, right? Because then you're not going backwards to try and fix something that you accidentally did.
Well, I also like the collaboration. It sounds like you've got employees that have some ideas, and you guys listen and work together, and that makes it work better. So really appreciate hearing that.
Yeah. How, you kind of mentioned like what you look for in an employee, but like training them, like what are the kind of steps, maybe just, it doesn't have to be like super detailed, but like broad, like what do you expect to do when you're trying to train someone, like, especially maybe if they don't have a lot of parts experience?
Yeah. So I was, when I was over at Huntington, we did have, they came over and they like showed somebody that was new, the different, like, I think they had somebody corporately that did like the onboarding and got them set up with some of the stuff. And I helped train a young lady that works over there at the Huntington store. And yeah, just, trying to explain to them the business system and the why behind it. Like on work orders, there's different segments, like why, well, we want those parts billed to a certain segment, time-wise, and, by the job. And, then there's tracking of, on that side of things. And then even billing stuff internally, like, say they want to use a partial can of brake cleaner, and they come up and they say, bill it to the shop. Well, it's kind of like explaining that to the new person, like, why are we doing this? And I think that the computer aspect of it, the business system, and probably looking up the parts, I would say for a new person is going to take, I would say, close to a year to really get a good grasp on.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I started, obviously I had the experience that I did, but like that was the hardest thing for me, is learning our business system and the why behind it. But like once you start understanding some of that stuff, then it makes more sense, and it just takes some time.
I think you hit the nail on the head is the why. I think you can show someone what to do, but if you don't explain why you're doing it, it's wasted time, because as soon as there's any deviation from that situation, they have no idea, what they need to do or potentially how they should do it. Right. And you say it takes a year to learn the whole business system. Yeah. I'm still learning stuff about our business system that I don't even know about.
That's where I got hung up, is it's for people to understand the investment it takes for us to put into new employees. A year of training is a long time.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like an ongoing on-the-job training.
Yeah, but there's so much that goes into it on the parts aspect with all the short lines, like touching back on that we deal with. Like there's a Teams page that we can utilize, and now they've got us set up with it's like a web browser extension called LastPass that stores your passwords and stuff, that like has a lot of that stuff in it. So if you know that you need to go to say Unverfurth, for example, you can go up there and just start typing in Unverfurth, and it'll have your password set for that website and log you in. And like, there's just a lot that goes into like where to go and where to look up some of this stuff. And
that was one of the first things that I was told when I started on and started getting trained was that, we can only show you so much and explain why so much, but we're going to offer you the resources. Right. So the biggest thing they said, honestly, was making sure you know where to find your resources at, because the resources will help you do that. We'll give you some of the foundation, but we can't sit here and explain everything, because there's just too much. There's too many things. There's too many places. There's too many links. But if you can know where these handful of resources are at, they'll let you get to the rest of that. And then you also mentioned something. Yeah, you beat me to it. The short line equipment. It's crazy how many different short lines that we carry and are a dealer for, right? We have a big John Deere sign out front.
Right.
So people walk in the door, we're going to be able to take care of you John Deere wise. But all the other stuff, we have a whole separate external system outside of ours that's not necessarily tied to it. That we have
multiple
to be,
systems,
yeah,
right?
Multiple.
So talk about that a little bit. Like that's got to be a pretty challenging task sometimes to completely change what you're used to on a daily basis to go for an off-brand part that we carry. So what are the biggest challenges with that, and what's that look like usually?
Yeah, I would say John Deere is one of the better parts catalogs and stuff to look at, and then also the like seamlessness with our business system because of us being a John Deere dealer and using John Deere programs and stuff. But a lot of the short line stuff, I guess I'm comfortable with it because that's what I was used to before, for 15 years previous. But a lot of it is looking at like PDF booklets on like actual, parts books or owner's manuals that the parts diagrams are buried in the back of it. So I guess I didn't really know any different before I started working, the John Deere dealership, and that's just kind of what I was used to. But yeah, it's a lot different because you can't just like click on a part number and see that you have it in stock, because it doesn't talk with our business system. Like you actually have to find a part number, and then you got to type it into the business system or know which warehouse. Like we have John Deere warehouse for parts in our business system, and then there's like a miscellaneous, and then like there's one for Unverfurth, one for J&M, one for Kuhn. Like you kind of gotta know where to look for some of the stuff, and that just, again, it comes with some time. And
for sure. Again, it's funny you mentioned PDF documents, because the company I had interned for, that's what it was. It was a PDF document. And to be honest, I still almost prefer that, because the system that we have now is just so much more expansive. I was like, I know it's in this book because it's a set PDF. I cannot not find it, but it's definitely, like you said, better because it's all integrated. Because you'd grab a part number, you'd have to go to a different business system, different system, type it in there. Okay, I don't have it on hand. Oh, I got to go to a completely different business system. Does our warehouse have it? But now, like you said, for the Deere side, it's all integrated versus all that extra work that goes in that we still do for our short line equipment, right?
But you said some Deere warehouses that carry some of those short line parts, but I'm assuming at times you have to get in the customer portal for one of those short line companies and order direct, or is that pretty much?
No, so I guess maybe I didn't say that correctly. So like in our business system, all the John Deere parts are in what we call the D warehouse for Deere parts. And then like pretty much everything else is in different warehouses, whether it be like this is strictly what is in our business
Oh,
system.
I got you.
But
Virtual warehouse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where the parts are stored in our business system, in our inventory to look this stuff up. But then as far as ordering the parts from the company, we create a daily order using our business system to make a purchase order for the stuff. And then you go to the company's website or call them, place the order, and you give them the PO number that you created for that.
Yep.
And
so there's a lot. It's more labor, significantly more labor intensive.
Yeah,
obviously.
a lot more clicks, right? That's the name of the game anymore. Right. How many clicks does it take to get to somewhere or get something done?
Right.
I want to hit something else on short line equipment because you talk about, it kind of rolls in a couple things. We talk about having people at the parts counter, being trained, being knowledgeable, right? So when someone walks in and says, I need a part for such and such thing, hopefully the parts counter salesperson doesn't give them a blank stare back. They hopefully know what that model is or roughly where to go to start finding some of that information. But it just goes to show counterparts people have to be good with John Deere equipment, Kuhn equipment, Hardy equipment, Haggie's, the list goes on, right? So, I mean, it's impressive when we have people, granted not every counter person is as experienced in some things. I know at the cold water store, we have Dave Harkey, he is our plow person. So if someone happens to come in and wants plow parts, he's the guy to go to because he was around when they were hot stuff. So, but it just goes to show how impressive it is that we are so well versed in not just Deere equipment, but other pieces of equipment. Even though Deere also has lots of different models, right? It's like a huge lineup. So there's a lot a person has to learn to become knowledgeable.
Yeah, and that kind of circles back to what I was telling you I would look for in a parts person is communication and people skills, because you need to, a customer calls in and they're like, hey, I have a bush hog mower. It's like, well, is it really a bush hog or is it a John Deere rotary mower? Or they call you and they're like, oh, I need a part for my Bobcat. Well, is it a Bobcat or is it a John Deere skid steer? So
you gotta ask the right questions.
Right. Yeah. That's what I've, when I was helping other, people around me, it's you need to ask the right questions to get to where you need to go. Try to, if the customer can't describe what they're looking for or what it goes on, you kind of just need to figure out the right questions to get you to where you need to go in the right direction you need to go.
You got to play detective, and you got to know some of the slang too, because some parts have special names, right?
Oh yeah. I remember the first time I heard somebody call the loading auger on a combine the bubble up or the fountain, and I'm what are you talking about?
Yeah, right. That would have thrown me for a loop. It just did there for a second. I was like, what are you talking?
Awesome.
Bubble up. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Learn all the jargon. So
yeah. I had one other thing real quick, which was you talk about customer interaction. We're also moving, or have moved at this point, everything is to a different phone system or Expert Connect system. So that rollout, we kind of started that late winter, early spring. So that way we had that done before spring planning for the most part. And we had all those kinks worked out, and it's a whole different kind of system, right? People call in now, they have call trees. They get routed to a certain store that way and what department they want. For us, it's nice because it's a helpful automated system, right?
It's like a massive digital voicemail, ticket system, automated ticket system, where every call has a record, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I still take notes when I start a call, but technically anymore, I almost don't have to because there's a recording, there's a transcript, right?
There's an AI transcript.
It's a digital scrap of paper that you wrote all your notes down, right? So how does that play in for you guys in the parts department?
So far, and truth be told, again, hate to interrupt, but this is obviously a system that we've been working on for significantly longer than most of the company.
Precision Ag, I love it. It's great.
Yeah. So your thoughts and the transition and how it's made your job hopefully easier or not?
Yeah. So we used it a little bit for the after hours phone support before we transitioned to it. So we'd used it a little bit, but not to the extent we are now. So now, a customer calls, they want to talk to parts. It rings to all the parts people on our computer, and we have a headset to answer the phone, or it'll also ring to your cell phone that you could pick it up on there. So you have access to look and see the customer's call history, or all the team tickets, that you're a part of. You can look at, and it is nice, having all that stuff recorded. So if the person calls in and the person they were talking to before isn't available, you can go in, you can read the AI transcript of it and maybe get the gist of what the conversation was like. And I'd say a couple of weeks ago, there was a part for a customer at the end of the day when I put in the stock order for John Deere, the parts came up that they were not available. So I'm like, well, I wonder why. And so I pulled up the phone conversation and I started listening to it because the guy had left for the afternoon that dealt with the customer. And I could listen to the entire conversation and hear what the customer was requesting and, what his expectation was of, the time to get the parts and whatnot. And it turns out it was just, I think the guy was on maybe the wrong page of the catalog, and it was like the European lights or something for this mower. And luckily they didn't get ordered by mistake because Deere said it wasn't orderable for your location or something like that. And so I was able to listen to the phone call and see what the customer wanted and look it up myself and find, the other part number and get the stuff on stock order for them. And so the customer didn't know any different, but that was nice being able to go back and listen to that. And I mean, I could give you examples, a few more examples. That, how nice it is and, that this stuff is recorded and looking at, customer history on some stuff. Like I know the after hours phone, like if a customer called in and he called one store and he didn't get a hold of them, and then you pull it back up. If you click on customer history, well, then you could see that he called a different store because he didn't get a hold of us because he desperately needed something. He's in between two stores. Well, then you can see, that the customer had contacted that other store, and that kind of, helps you maybe stay on the same page a little bit or, ahead of the game a little bit.
It helps you not have to play telephone with 10 other people. Do I need to call the employee that talked to him? Do I need to call the customer back? Do I need to call someone at another store? There's, 3 or 4 different conversations that just eliminates because you don't have to go ask all the questions.
That's right. You shouldn't have to ask the customer to repeat all his information if the system works right, and you're getting call transferred from somewhere else. And again, it's been a great system for us. And again, it's like a digital record keeping and a digital voicemail system, a digital phone system all in one. And I always tell customers, and hopefully you'll agree with this, if for some reason you guys are all busy and it goes to a voicemail, I always tell the customers, leave a detailed message. It makes it much easier to be prepared to get back with you promptly and when we know what you're calling about. So
I don't know why that etiquette ever went away. You should always just leave a good voicemail. But leave a good voicemail because if you leave a good enough voicemail, we'll call you back and we'll have an answer.
Right. And I think people get impatient, maybe want to call someone else, turn around and call someone else. But I always tell customers, hey, leave a detailed message. The right person will call you back and be prepared to deal with your situation if you leave that message.
Right. And even with our after hours phone support, I would request that customers leave a voicemail if the person that's on call, is tied up or maybe they're driving or, whatever, they don't answer the phone. Leave a voicemail, tell us what you're working on, maybe the part that you're after. And that way, if we need a little bit of time to get our computer on or whatever, we can, get it started up and start looking up the thing before we return your call. And it could make it even smoother for you. Yeah. And then I know if there is a missed call, it automatically texts the person and, says, sorry, we missed your call. Somebody will get back with you and you can text your issue. Even at that, if they would prefer to text, they could text us, hey, I'm working on blah, blah, blah. I need part. Try to describe it in a text, and that would help somebody even get a jump on, getting started looking the part up and stuff.
That's an awesome point. I forget about that. That's just something that I've always had with Expert Connect. But for you guys with the old phone system, you had no way really of texting to an external, a number or a customer, right? Now you guys can send pictures back, which should be game changing for parts. Hey, what does that look like? Well, it's right next to such and it's so and so, and you don't know what it is. It looks just like this, and then everyone describes it differently. So it's a lose-lose. But now you just say, pull out your phone and shoot me a picture, and I'll know it's
picture.
That part.
The picture part of that is lifesaver.
Yeah, it has to be.
I used to previous to working, for TRULAND, I would, have customers text me because I know how hard it is to describe a part that you're working on some stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, when I was before we switched to this phone system, I would do that. I would be like, hey, can you text? And before we went to this phone system, we had team numbers for the after hours phone, and I would have them text the team number and send pictures through Expert Connect even before it was a thing. So that's been nice that not every single customer has my personal cell phone number.
Right, correct.
Right. No, great system. I'm glad to hear it's working well because it's a transition and it takes work and time.
There's and kinks. We'll get some of the bugs worked out, smooth things out.
The positives by far outweigh the negatives. So
I would agree.
Definitely. Yeah. So, man, Erikk, good stuff.
Yeah.
Erikk with 2 Ks.
2K.
2K Erikk.
Parting thoughts. Anything else, Erikk? Anything that we didn't cover? Burning thoughts, desires that you want to share?
No, not that I can think of. Thank you guys for having me on. I was, a little surprised, caught off guard that I was asked to do this, but yeah, it's been fun.
I'm telling you, I don't think we can reveal our sources.
Right. No, and really, I think it's important for us to vocally explain kind of what all goes into our parts system and our parts program and our parts staff and the job that they do and the depth that they go to make sure that our customers are taken care of.
For sure.
And to be honest, we probably just scratched the surface of it today.
We definitely did. We could have talked for. I mean, I'm not the expert, but I'm sure we could have talked for hours. I would have. I eat this stuff up. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, great job.
So thanks, Erikk.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Talk to you guys next time.
See ya.